Good morning. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. If it's Tuesday, it's Jason Sukamel, and it's recruiting day. Time for all our recruiting updates. And Jason is here, not feeling the best, right, Jason? Not feeling the best, but you're going to stomach through this thing like the champion that you are.
Popping my Hall's mentholyptus or whatever the hell these things are, so I hopefully won't have a coughing spell, but we'll see how far.
Well, Jason, I know Texas had a junior. There's two ways we can start. Texas had a junior day, but you also had an update on Jalen Lott. Do you want me you want to go position by position and then maybe incorporate maybe what you have on Jalen Lott and some of these other guys in there?
Yeah, you and I are kind of just shooting from the hip here, so to speak, but that's my fault because I didn't post my column. I've been under the weather. We can go position by position. Jalen Lott actually was at the junior day almost, so that's where that interview came from. But yeah, it was a big junior day on Saturday. Texas hosted a bunch of guys, and I was down there and was able to get a lot of interviews. So we can kind of just go quick hitters position by position, and we can go through a lot of the guys that were there.
Well, let's start with the sexiest position of all sexy positions. You always got to start with the quarterback, Jason. And we already know, like as far as quarterbacks concerned, probably not a lot of news, probably nothing really shaking as relates to that quarterback position. But go ahead and tell me, Jason, let's start there for the QB position as relates to junior day.
Yeah, Diabell is the name to know there. The Texas quarterback out of Florida, Texas commitment out of Florida, was in town for, I would think this maybe his fourth, maybe even fifth visit to UT. So he was there with his dad. They came in Friday and, of course, went to the junior day on Saturday. With Georgia did offer him a week and a half ago or something. So people were a little bit nervous about that. I don't think there's anything to be nervous about based on my conversations, Dia's actions, talking to his dad, Rajabel. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned. In fact, Dia's main purpose for this visit, it wasn't like, oh, hey, I'm going to come, get connected with the coaches. He's already connected really well with AJ Milwee, Steve Sarkisian. Now, before we get too far into this, I should mention Sark was not at the junior day, okay?
Okay.
Like me and half of Austin, he was not feeling well. So probably has that stupid flu bug that's going around. So, but he did spend time, Diabell did, with AJ Milwee and other members of the staff. His big purpose of this visit was, hey, I'm going to come in and try to recruit some other people. And like you saw, he posted on social media a bunch of pictures with him and offensive linemen that were at the junior day, which is, hey, smart quarterback, right? You want to have offensive linemen in that recruiting class with you. So I think it was another productive visit for Diabell. I think Texas is pretty well locked in there. They did offer, and I don't even have his name handy on Morgan. I'm sorry, I'm not super prepared.
You're good.
But they did offer. He's a 2025 guy, so he's a guy who will graduate in May. He's a preferred walk-on quarterback. He's committed. Man, I put it in my notes. If you give me like a second here, I can find it. But so they did offer a preferred walk-on at the quarterback position, and he's going to decide, whether or not in the next couple of days. Actually, he's going to decide whether he's going to. Maddox Mayer out of Dripping Springs is his name. He's committed to Angelo State. They did offer him, a preferred walk-on position. So, he may come in, he may be part of the roster next year. Probably not a guy that will ever, if he just decides to go to Texas, maybe not a guy that we're ever going to see on the field necessarily, but a guy that, could be a valuable person on the depth charts in terms of scout team work and things like that. But the big story for the quarterback position was obviously getting Diabell back on campus for another visit. Kind of, just anytime you can show him, just remind him and reinforce, hey, this is why you chose Texas. It's a good thing. And Dia's kind of, quarterbacks can go two ways as recruits. Some of them are kind of the recruiting ringleader, if you will. Some more take a backseat approach. Diabell, he's not super vocal, but he is kind of a ringleader in that other people know him and they kind of flock to him, if you will. So always good to have Diabell on campus for the University of Texas.
Yeah, and the other thing that when I think about that, Jason, I think, the thing is, Sark's so good, and knock on wood, but they're pretty good about when they get their QB commitments. Those guys seem to be pretty locked in, even if it's a long period of time. And I almost look at Bell as a guy, who's checking the box and all is good. It makes me really think about the 2027 class from quarterbacks, more so than the 2026. And we'll know probably by what I'm guessing this summer. We'll get guys who are committing for the 2027 class, and those guys will start to get locked in. I'm just kind of curious, where does Texas stand with some of these 20? I know it sounds far away, but 6 months from now, a lot of these guys are going to be committing going into their junior years. Where does that Texas stand with some of these guys?
Yeah, quarterback is the one position, because you're right, because Bell committed last summer, KJ Lacey the summer before that committed. Mm-hmm. So, those quarterbacks, especially with Texas, they commit really early, and then really they don't really waver. It's just kind of smooth sailing since then. I'm glad you asked that, because I didn't talk about him, but there was a 2027 quarterback that was at the junior day. Look at that, Omar. This was not solicited or anything. Yeah, actually,
look at
that, man. Like, people would think we planned this out. Like, no. I didn't tell Omar to ask about this.
Hey, tell me about the 2027 quarterback out of Georgia.
No, Georgia, but he's out of Shreveport, Louisiana.
Yeah.
We were so close. Peyton Houston's a quarterback out of Louisiana. I mean, he's big time. He's legit. Top national player. I don't know. Let me pull him up if Rivals has him. I don't think he's a 5-star, because they haven't put out that many 5, but he's number 13 in the country. So he will be a 5-star. He was at the, he was actually at the Rivals 5-star, I'm wearing Rivals 5-star sweatshirt here, but he was at the Rivals 5-star event last summer.
Who the hell put a future cast for Oklahoma in for this guy?
Yeah, I don't know. That seems a little premature, but he was at.
What coach? Who's going to be coaching him? Who
exactly.
the hell Rivals?
Well, it's got to be the Oklahoma publisher, right? I don't know if I can see it.
Well, maybe, yeah.
But he was at the junior day. He's been to Texas a bunch. Texas offered him last summer, I think it was, when he came in for their elite camp. Truly an elite player. I mean, arguably maybe the best quarterback in the country in his class. There was one game this year, and I don't have it handy, but I swear he threw for like 700 yards. It was something ridiculous on war in one game this dude did. Wow. So, and also you like to hear me say it, just a phenomenal young man. I mean, phenomenal. Like when I talk about the Malik Murphys, Peyton Houston might move to the top of that list. So he's that caliber of young man. But he loves Texas. He spent a lot of time. You're seeing the offer list there. You're showing him. That dude could pick up the phone tomorrow and commit to anybody in the country. But he spent a lot of time with AJ Milwee, and he said, man, I really liked reconnecting with Coach Milwee. He said, hey, Texas showed me, Coach Milwee showed me how I could fit in their offense. So like they really kind of broke it down schematically. So that was kind of one of, that was one of the more under the radar big visits, if you will, because I did not have him on my list of visitors coming in previewing the event. When I saw him, I was like, oh my goodness, that's Peyton Houston. I didn't have him on my list. So I made sure to, of course, get a picture and get an interview with him. But yeah, that was another big visit. He's been on campus a bunch. He's visited Texas a bunch. Texas is a school. It's still obviously very early, but you're right. This summer we could be talking about Peyton Houston making a decision. I mean, that's awfully early, but that's kind of how, that's kind of how these quarterback dominoes fall. So, and Texas is very much in the mix for Peyton Houston.
Yeah, and wasn't there another kid, 2027, is a kid from like California or something like that they were interested in?
There's Brady Edmonds is his name. He's a quarterback out of California. He's visited a couple times, but he did commit to Ohio State. He's a super early commitment. So
gotcha.
Talk about these early quarterback commitments. Yeah, it was kind of, I mean, Texas is very much in the mix, but he saw a spot at Ohio State and went ahead and grabbed his spot there.
Okay. All right, Jason, go get some drink of water. Go ahead and
some hot tea or something. Yeah.
Your tea, your I mean, you should be drinking First of all, you sick. You should be drinking some sort of dark liquor. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you drinking tea? You should be, what, your grandma.
It's 9:15 in the morning. If you saw me at 9:15 last night, now we might have been having a different discussion. So.
I'm just saying, what they say, it's happy hour somewhere at all times. So then, with that being said, let's just move to the running back position there. Who is there? I know KJ Edwards is a big time name. Javian Osborne is another one. You know, of those guys, who are some of the guys that made it out there for Junior Day?
You named them. Both of those guys were there.
Okay.
Isaiah Lee is a running back out of Lancaster that was there. He did not get an offer. He's a guy they're going to continue to evaluate. But the conversation at running back right now is KJ Edwards and Javian Osborne, the two guys you mentioned. KJ Edwards out of Carthage, Javian Osborne out of Forney. They both were at the Junior Day. They've both been on campus a bunch. I mean, they're multiple time visitors. You know, I think Texas is probably the team to beat for both of them. I was talking to someone about this last night. Now, the problem, like, you know, it's okay, well, then put in a future cast for both of them for Texas. Well, I might, honestly. But will one impact the other? You know, Texas will probably take two running backs in this class. But are they going to be able to get both those highly talented in-state guys to commit to, you know, or might one commit and that might force the other one to go somewhere else? You know, we'll see. I don't know how those dominoes are going to fall, but I mean, Texas really likes both those guys. Both those guys really like Texas. I think I even I talked to both of them, and I think I even phrased it, if I remember correctly. Like I just said, hey, KJ, like people ask me like where you're going to go. And I say, hey man, I'm not saying you're going to Texas, but I always tell people like, there's not a school I would put above Texas. And I said, am I wrong for saying that? And he's like, nah, man, you're not wrong for saying that. And he kind of said, you see, there's a future cast in there for Texas A&M.
Who the hell is doing these future casts, Jason?
I'm looking at that one. That's Landon from the Texas A&M side, of course. So, and if A&M gets him, it's because, in my opinion, it's because Texas landed Javian Osborne and KJ opted to go to A&M, because I think Texas is the team that KJ would prefer to be at over Texas A&M. So it's going to be interesting. You know, he and Javian both want to take some official visits. You know, so that'll take us into the summer before they're going to decide. So could it be the race to see who's going to be the first one to commit? You know, it'll be interesting. But both those dudes really like Texas a lot. There's Javian Osborne. Both are big-time top national running backs. Texas would love to get both of them, obviously, and I'm not saying they can't. We've seen Tashard Choice do it before, so could Texas land both KJ and Javian? Very possible. We'll see. But Texas is in a great spot. Both those dudes are on campus. They both love Tashard Choice. I mean, I almost get the impression they both want to be at Texas, but they also want to do their homework. Javian Osborne there, you see on where he's I mean, Michigan's if it's not Texas for Javian, it'll probably be Michigan, in my opinion.
A lot of visits.
So if he goes to Michigan, does that then open the door for KJ to be at Texas? You know, we'll see. Again, we got some time to see how this thing's going to kind of shake out. But bottom line is Texas is in a great spot for both those guys. Yeah,
I mean, and Jason, once you got to help me with the names here. That time, I would say several years, probably been over 10 years ago, when Texas landed the 2 5-star running backs. You remember which ones I'm talking about? Neither one ended up panning out, but one guy, I think he got injuries and everything. Do you remember what I'm talking about, Jason?
No, my mind is.
Come on, there's 2 5-star running backs, and somewhere around 20
stars.
Yeah, there's somewhere around 2012, 2013.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, my brain's fried. Well, it wouldn't be like Jonathan Gray would have been back.
Jonathan Gray and Malcolm Brown.
Oh, well, not in the same class, but yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, all right. I thought they were in the same class, Jason.
No, they're different classes, but they were pretty close. Yeah, neither one really panned out. You're right. So
okay,
they were not in the same class.
All right. Well, I thought they were in the same class. So since they weren't, ignore that. Jason, what about the receiver side? Let's start going through that. Why don't you lump in receiver and tight end? into this one, so we can keep it going a little faster for you.
Yeah, not much to talk on tight end unless we're considering 2027 Zane Rowe, who's a defensive end slash tight end, former Oklahoma commitment, really, really good player. But he was there, but not really. He's more of an athlete. In fact, I think he's probably going to be a defensive end, but not much at tight end. But there was some receiver talent there. Interestingly, Chris Stewart is the Texas receiver commitment. I never saw him there, so I don't think he showed up. I need to reach out to him and see if something came up. So, that doesn't mean there's anything to be worried about necessarily, but he is a guy. He's committed to Texas, but he's also said, "Hey, I'm going to take other visits." So, if you're Texas, you would have probably obviously preferred to have seen him at the junior debut. Jabari Mack is a receiver out of Louisiana that was in town. He's going to LSU this coming weekend. He's got offers from all over the country. I asked him flat out, he listed some schools. I said, okay, dude, like who's realistically leading the pack here? And there's a future cast in for LSU for Jabari. And he said, right now it's probably Texas and Texas A&M. So I thought that was interesting. Jabari Mack out of Louisiana, Rivals 100 member, listing Texas and Texas A&M as the two teams to beat. Trey Moore is a receiver, is a 2027 receiver out of Pflugerville. They offered him at the junior day, so that's a guy that Texas really likes. I'm sorry, they did not offer Trey.
I was going to say I don't see this on the offer. Him on the
offer.
He's
20. He's 2027. But
okay, gotcha.
James Scott is a local guy that was in town that they didn't offer him. Let me get my story straight. So they did not offer James Scott, but he really liked the visit quite a bit. Said, hey, even without the offer, Texas is one of his top schools. He thinks they're going to offer him. Trey Moore is a 2027 receiver out of Pflugerville. I think it's Weiss High School in Pflugerville. They did offer him, and I did talk to Trey. Man, he's a good-looking. In fact, I didn't know who he was on where he showed up. I'm like, he got out of his car. I'm like, whoa, who's that dude? I said, I need to get a picture of that guy, whoever that is. He's 6'4", 210-ish. It's really well put together. Only a sophomore in high school, but that guy looks the part. Texas did offer him at the junior day. And then the other, if we're talking receiver, Michael Brown was there. He's a guy that Texas has offered. The other name to know at receiver, but Texas is not recruiting him necessarily as a receiver. It's Jalen Lott out of Frisco, out of Panther Creek High School up in Frisco. And I mean, this dude, there you go. I mean, that dude is big time legit. I actually wrote about him on Orange Bloods yesterday. So I encourage everyone, go check it out on Orange Bloods and watch his highlight video. I mean, he's phenomenal. Now, his dad, James Lott, played at Texas. Texas is actually recruiting him as a cornerback. And they've talked about, Sark went by his school a week or so ago and said, hey, dude, we will get you some packages on offense to get the ball in your hand as well. So really, he's a true dual threat player. The obvious comparison is Travis Hunter, right? We want to compare everyone to Travis Hunter. See, Travis Hunter, I don't know. Travis Hunter was the number one player in the country coming out of high school, but Jalen Lott is really, really good, man. Silky smooth, runs great routes, great ball skills. Just the best way I can describe it, he just makes it look so easy, man. Phenomenal player. His dad's a UT Hall of Honor member. Dad played football. Dad ran track or jumped at Texas. So I think Texas is in a good spot there for sure.
Yeah, this is one of those you got to hope where, while parents want to let kids make their own decisions, you're like, but would it hurt if you went to my alma mater, right?
Now, he is visiting Oklahoma this weekend. So,
that has to hurt Papa right there.
Yeah.
Man.
So, that tells me.
Hurt.
Well, it's kind of like Caden Finley when I talked to him a couple weeks ago. I said, how does your dad feel about the A&M visits? And he was at Notre Dame last weekend. And he goes, it was rough at first, but once my dad kind of went on a couple of these visits with me, he said, he kind of understood. And he goes, hey, son, I'll let you do whatever you want. So, I get it. It helps with Caden Finley. It helps with Jalen Lott. But I don't think either of those dudes are a stone cold lock for Texas just because their dads played at Texas.
offensive line, Jason. Obviously this is a big one. I feel like Texas has kind of been chasing a little bit as far as since they were able to have that really great offensive line class with Banks and Campbell and everything, and it's hard to replicate. But what did it got cooking so far, Jason?
Yeah, honestly, like that was the big position group from that junior day for me. And I say that John Turntime did not make it in. Okay,
Okay.
he wound up visiting Tennessee. Interestingly, how that came about, I don't know. And I never like Turntime's dad had told me early in the week there were a maybe to visit Texas, so I never had him locked in to visit UT, but ended up not coming in. But if I go down this list, and I'll blow through them pretty quickly, man, before my voice gives out on me. But
Yeah.
Max Wright out of Melissa
Mhm.
is a guy that Texas offered a long time ago. He was in. He set up his official visit for Texas for June 20th.
Where is it? No Stars by Maximus, right? First of
Yeah,
all, I'm partial
Maximus.
to that.
Yeah, how about that, Maximus? Right?
Yeah.
I know you love that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So actually, I talked to someone at Rivals yesterday, not about his star ranking, but we were just talking about Max Wright, and I just said, yeah, I think that dude's going to wind up at Texas. And this person was like, hey, I need to go look at his film and get him ranked properly. And yeah, you do actually. So that'll change in the near future. But yeah, he does need a ranking. But Max, I like Max because he's kind of just a no BS kind of guy. Like he doesn't play the games that a lot of these kids like to play. Like he flat out said, like, hey, it's pretty much Texas and SMU are my top two, and those are the main ones I'm considering. And Texas is the leader for him right now. So he's going to visit UT in June officially, and I look for him to be a Longhorn at some point. Zayden Krempin out of Prosper, another guy that set up a Texas official visit for June 13th. He's an offensive tackle that Texas really likes. He's kind of got about 4-ish schools. And again, if I'm putting a pick in right now, and I'm stealing my own thunder a little bit, I'm going to make some of these predictions in my 3-2-1 column that I'll post tonight. But Zayden Krempin, I think he'll wind up at Texas. Okay, he's a guy that really likes UT, has some strong connections to the program, including Jake Majors. He's good friends with. So I think Texas looks good there. Drew Evers out of Flower Mound, another guy that highly touted, highly recruited. He was on campus, had a great visit. He told me it was a great visit. Always good to be back. He does want to take a lot of visits, but Drew Evers was there. Toa Katoa is a guy out of, it's actually Pupunga Toa, but he goes by Toa Katoa. He's an interior offensive lineman out of Euless Trinity. Big, massive, like 365-pound, just mauler.
Oh my gosh, this guy's huge.
Yeah. Rivals has him as a tackle there. You'll see that change. He'll probably be moved to offensive guard at some point in the Rivals rankings. But you see their 3-star again. That'll probably change too. Excuse me. A lot of schools after him, but that dude has been to Austin. In fact, he just released the top 5. I think it was yesterday, but I don't think there's anybody I'd put above Texas. He's been a regular visitor for every Texas recruiting event. Just really likes Texas a lot. And then 2 other guys who I think he make a strong case will be in this offensive line class are Nick Robertson out of Klein and Felix Ojo out of Mansfield Lake Ridge. Both had great visits. Both have been regular visitors at UT. Felix Ojo, I've written about a bunch. He was at the Navy All-American Bowl as a junior earlier this month. Phenomenal player. You want to get Turntine, obviously. Excuse me. If you're Texas, but I don't even like calling Felix Ojo a consolation prize because he's good enough in his own right that he could be your kind of bell cow of that offensive line group. You see there, he's number 78 nationally. I think he probably moves up even from that honor. I think he's that good. So, it was a really good offensive line class. And I should mention, Felix Ojo did set up an official visit for Texas for June 13th. So Kyle Flood, other than Jalen Lott, I didn't mention Jalen Lott also set up an official visit for June 13th. Other than Jalen Lott, Kyle Flood was the only one that actually set up official visits with his guys. So he set up, I think, 3 official visits with some of these offensive linemen. So we're kind of starting to see that offensive line picture come into focus a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, 6'7", 279. I mean, it's pretty damn athletic. And the other kid that you had mentioned, was that
Yeah,
that was the other kid you said he might go. That's the same Melissa.
oh,
That's Goosby's school,
sure
correct?
is. Yep, sure is. And I'll actually be up there. I'll get a chance to see Max. I'm assuming the Under Armour camp.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call it? Under Armour Next camp? I think they call them now. Is actually going to be at Melissa High School. Not this weekend, but I think the weekend after, 2 weekends. I don't remember. But anyways, I'll be up in Melissa in a couple weeks. I'll get to see Max work out in person. He's a good-looking prospect. He's got a great frame. He's probably not a guy that's going to be. I mean, who is? But he's not going to. Kelvin Banks is not going to come in and be a day one starter. Not many guys do that for you, but he's a guy that you could certainly see. You mentioned Trevor Goosby. Took Trevor a year or two of seasoning to be ready, and Max Wright's kind of in that same progression, maybe as Trevor Goosby.
All right, defensive line. We can put in, if you want to, we can put in, the tackles and the edge positions and lump them into one. I'm going to let you do some lumping here, Jason. So we can get you out of here.
Yeah, there were a couple of defensive end guys. Jamarian Carlton, we've talked about out of Temple, a guy that's visited a bunch. He was there. Again, he's fairly open, but I don't think there's any school I would put above Texas for Jamarian Carlton. I mean, he's from Temple. He visits a ton. Texas is making him a priority. He did visit A&M the weekend before Texas. He is, I think he's going to USC maybe this coming weekend. Man, some of these visits are blurring together a little bit, but bottom line is he was on campus. He's a guy that Texas likes a lot. He likes Texas a lot. Yaya God is a guy that I don't know if we've talked about him on your show. I've definitely written about him. He's out of Tennessee. He came in for the Kentucky game, and he was back for the junior day. Drove 12 hours each way. He drove in once again. That dude loves Texas. I mean, bottom line is, if Texas wants to take his commitment, I would be shocked if he isn't a part of the Texas recruiting class at some point.
Yeah, you say it's God?
Like, it's funny. Like when I talked to him on the phone a couple weeks ago, I said, "Hey, am I saying that right?" Yeah, and he goes, "Yeah, it's close enough." So I'm like, "Okay, all right." I'm probably not.
Did you ask him what his name means?
No, I didn't ask him what it means.
That's the story. The story is what is the story behind the name? Like, I'm very curious as to.
And then God, I don't know. But it's funny. So how these junior days work, they bust these guys out. Like they take them to where they park their cars, and sometimes you'll have like one guy on a bus. Sometimes there'll be like 10 guys getting off a bus, right? So you're trying to interview. Sometimes there's like 6, 7, 8 guys, and you're trying to get interviews before they all leave. And so Yaya and about 6 others get off the bus, and I was interviewing somebody. I don't remember who it was, but I'm talking to this one guy, and I see Yaya walk by, and I holler him, say Yaya, and he kind of nods at me, and I say, "Hey, don't leave." And I want to talk to you. And he goes, "Okay." So I finished interviewing this guy. I'm still interviewing him. And I see Yaya starting to walk off to his car. I get it. He's got a 12-hour drive home, right?
Yes.
And so I'm like, Yaya, don't leave. He kind of rolled his eyes. And I'm like, so finally I finished my interview, and I go talk to Yaya, and I'm interviewing Yaya, and I go, "You going home tonight?" He goes, "Yeah, man, we got a 12-hour drive home." I go, "Oh, damn." I said, "No wonder you rolled your eyes." And I was like, "Don't leave." I felt bad. I made the dude sit there and wait for me to give me an interview before he got in the car for a 12-hour drive home. But really awesome kid, awesome young man. But loves Texas, loves Georgia. I think he's going to Florida and Florida State this weekend. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see if Texas really, they've brought him in twice. Now the question is, do they want to push for his commitment? If they do, I think Texas certainly gets him. Could be Georgia, could be one of these other schools. But I mean, he likes Texas a ton. I mean, the dude's driven in twice, right, on his own dime, 12 hours each way to see the UT program. So, I mean, Texas is in a really good spot there. We'll just kind of have to see what happens moving forward. I didn't get to talk to him, but Jamian Winfield is a defensive tackle that was in town. Again, sometimes these guys get off the bus, and there's so many of them, it's hard to grab everybody. But he's a guy that was in town, and he's a guy that I think is kind of moving up that Texas board. Defensive tackle out of Richardson, Texas. So, pretty decent offensive line group. Everybody spoke very highly, defensive line group. Everybody spoke pretty highly of Kenny Baker, and I think Texas did a good job with all those guys.
Linebackers, Jason, those are always the hardest ones, I think, in most classes to find. You don't get a ton of kids saying, I want to sign up to be linebackers like they used to. So what do you got from that position?
Yeah, the two big names there. Well, I'll give you three names. Calvin Thomas is a linebacker out of Cy Ranch. Okay, Texas hasn't offered him. And he's going to be a guy that they'll continue to evaluate. But, Texas likes him. Obviously, he likes Texas, came in. But the two big names at linebacker are DeQuivis Beck. He goes by Quee Beck, and Kosiak Pala out of Mady Creek. Both those guys are big-time players. I think Kosie's if I'm not mistaken, I think he's a Rivals 100 member. Quee's, I think, a Rivals 250 guy. But, Texas really talked to Quee Beck there. You show him about, hey, like his versatility. He's a guy that can obviously play as a linebacker, but can also, even line up in the secondary if you need him to. He's kind of, think DeMarvion Overshown. He came into Texas as a linebacker, as a safety rather, and he is now a linebacker in the NFL. Well, that's kind of Quee Beck. That's kind of his build. He's athletic enough. He can make plays in space. Texas really likes him. He really likes Texas. I joked with him after the thing. I said, "Who'd you come with?" And he goes, "Oh, my mom. And I think it was his girlfriend was with him." I said, "No, Dad?" And he goes, "No," because his dad's a big Texas Longhorn fan. So I was like, "Oh man, I bet your dad was bummed out that he didn't get to come in." But Quee Beck is a guy that really likes Texas a lot. Kosiak Pala, is a Rivals 100 guy out of Mady Creek. I think Texas is in a really good spot there. But I thought it was interesting because I did ask Kosi, like, "Hey, did you talk about official visits?" And he said, "Yeah, but I'm trying to kind of work on setting those up." And he goes, "I don't know if I'm going to take one like the Texas or Texas A&M," because he goes, "I might use those for out-of-state schools rather than in-state schools." So I would be surprised if he doesn't take an official visit to Texas at some point. But he is looking at, Notre Dame and some of these out-of-state schools for possible official visits instead of the in-state schools. But, Kosi always has really positive things to say about Texas. More of your traditional, let's say a banger of a linebacker, but 220. What does it say that game? See, 215. I think it's
215 listed as
more of your traditional linebacker, whereas Quee's a little bit more of a more of a narrow frame, if you will, Quee Beck. But Texas did a good job. Both those guys. If I'm predicting, I would probably predict Texas to get both of those guys right now.
Okay. Last but not least, we'll just go to DBs. Again, I'll lump them in. You could put cornerbacks and safeties in the same room. Just give me the highlights. Give me the big guys that I need to know.
Yeah, well, we already talked about Jalen Lott, who we talked about receiver, but Texas is primarily recruiting him as a cornerback. So you can start there. Jamarian Vincent out of Waco Connolly was in town. That dude loves Texas. We'll see how much if Texas pushes there. Brock King out of Port Arthur Memorial is a guy that is interesting. We haven't talked about him much, I don't think, on your show, but he was in town, loved the visit. He said, "Hey, you mentioned Jalen Gilbo and all the guys from kind of the Port Arthur area. Ty Anthony Smith." He said that's actually his cousin, Ty Anthony Smith. He mentioned like 3 or 4 guys on the Texas roster because I'm really close with those dudes. So I think Texas is in a really good spot there for Brock King. Blake Stewart is a guy out of Georgia who he's visited before, and he came back in. Anytime these out-of-state guys are taking multiple visits, okay, that's something to keep an eye on. And then you see Blake there. So, top 100 national player. The other guy to really focus on here, I think, is a safety out of North Shore in Houston, Chase Calicut. He's a new Texas offer. They only offered him maybe a week and a half or so ago. But there you go.
Jeez, he's tall. 4?
Yeah, exactly.
My
6'4". He's a safety.
goodness.
Texas wants him to stay at safety. He likes that. He said, "Hey, man, I can do some different things at safety." This guy's a good-looking player onward, and like you said, man, he's got good length. Uh, really, I mean, really likes. In fact, I flat out asked him, said, "Hey, where does Texas kind of stand for you?" There you go, number 70 nationally. And he said, "You know what?" He said, "They're number one right now, especially after that visit." So, new offer, but Texas is already sitting at number one for him. So, really good player and really good chance. I think Chase Calicut winds up in this Texas class.
Last but not least, Jason, do we need to know anything from a special teams situation?
Nope.
Because we know Jeff Banks. He's sitting there. He's like, man, I know there's a long snapper out there that needs a scholarship, and damn it, I'm going to give it to him. Is there a Jeff Banks long snapper, kicker, punter that's on the radar?
You'll be happy that the answer to that is no, Anwar. So
someone basically has held Jeff Banks down. It's like, stop making these offers.
Yeah, there was not that I'm aware of. There was no. They may have been somebody on campus, but they certainly didn't offer anybody.
Yeah,
I don't think there was even anybody that was on campus in terms of special teams guys. So those guys usually bubble up like in the summer if that's going to happen, because they go to these kicking camps. And there's these top national kicking camps, Chris Saylor and those others. So if Texas makes a move on something like that, it'll be down the road a little bit, but no, nothing like that from this weekend. And there were some, we've talked about the 2026 guys for the most part. There were some 2027s, so some sophomores that were there. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now, but they did put a couple offers on the table. We've got those up on Orange Bloods, and I'll be writing about them throughout the week. So overall, it wasn't like a junior day of the past where you're like, oh, there was like 12 commitments or even 3 silent commitments. That wasn't the MO, especially with Sark not being there. Okay. They weren't pushing these guys to commit, but I think it was a productive weekend for Texas. And one of the things I'm going to do in my column tonight is predict, okay, these guys from the junior day, these are the guys I think will wind up being in the Texas class at some point. So, and there'll be a good number of them. I haven't even gone through the whole list yet formally in my own head, but there'll be a good number of them. I think a lot of these guys we're talking about, I think will wind up being part of the Texas class. And last weekend was a big first step for that.
All right, Jason, let's get out of here. You have made it through, Jason. You take some emergency or something like that, Jason.
That's the one thing I have not taken. I got so much medicine pumping through me, dude, like cough suppressants and Tamiflu and nasal sprays. Shit, they gave me so much medicine. But no, emergency is the one thing I have not taken. Maybe I need to give that a try.
I mean, you've got a couple of hours between now and the modcast.
Honestly, I might go back to bed for a couple hours.
All right, guys. If you guys missed anything from the beginning, go back and rewind it. Watch it there. Watch it on. Everybody tells me to watch it on 1.5 speed, and this way you get through the show faster. But for your drives and everything like that, we'll have the modcast that's coming up just within the next couple of hours. So thank you, Jason, as well. Stay here. Remember, I always say, live each day last. One day it will be. You guys go.